you some simple tips for how to do baseboard. Okay, so a couple things that you want to consider is, what is your flooring going to be? Are you going to be putting down carpet to where the carpet is going to need to tuck underneath the base, or are you setting the base right on the floor, onto a hard surface? In this room, they're going to be laying carpet, so I'm going to hold the base up 3/8 of an inch off the floor. I don't get too technical about it. If I can get most of my fingertip underneath it, that's good enough. The carpet layers can tuck the carpet. The other thing is, some people prefer coping their corner joints, and you can also miter which I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to miter these joints, and if you have flat trim, you don't even have to cope or miter. You can just butt joint everything. So we'll be doing that, and I'm going to show you in just a second how to easily measure the walls. Okay, so in measuring your walls, some of the walls are a little bit longer, and it makes measuring a little bit tough, but you can make it a little easier on yourself by dividing the wall up and then measuring out to a mark. I've made a mark here, and I'm going to measure from this next wall out to there, and I'm going to measure back there where my base is going to butt into the casing out to there, and I'll just add those measurements up. The other thing is, I like to consider the kind of base that I'm going to be installing and how big it is, and I will try to keep my measurement up about where the top of that base is going to be. So I've made a mark. I've just sort of eyed the wall and said this looks to be about half, and I'll measure out from that next wall out, and that's just over 62 inches, and then I'll measure from this casing where the base is going to butt into, and I'll measure out to that. That's about 67 right on, and so I'll add those two things up, and that's how long my piece is. Just makes it easier so that you're not trying to, if you're doing this by yourself, you don't have to crawl along the wall and try to keep your tape measure in the same place all the way along there. So that's the first tip. Okay, so I've cut all of my pieces for this bedroom here, and I'm going to put the first one up. So I've got it in place down there where it's going to butt into the casing, and then it goes up to that corner. I'm going to nail it just once to begin with, here somewhere along the center, and I know that I have a bottom plate, a sill plate on this wall all the way across. So if I nail near the floor, I'll hit wood. Now the next thing is you want to nail into the wall studs. And code here in Utah, and I'm sure it's pretty similar everywhere, at least across the US, the studs are supposed to be every 16 inches on center. So how do I find that? Oftentimes you can actually see the nail lines into the studs on the walls, depending on how heavy they've been textured. And sometimes they'll be painted and you just don't have a chance to see. You can use stud finders, but the one thing that you do know is that there will be a stud on one side or the other of these outlets. And so I can knock those, and I can actually see part of the tape joint there, the nail line. I know there's a stud right there. So that's where I'm going to nail first. So now that I have it nailed there, and I've held it off the ground 3/8, you see, so that the carpet layers will be able to tuck the carpet layer in this particular room. Now, if you need to, you can use your tape measure and start it at your nail line here and go over 16 inches and put another nail there. I've actually figured out with my gun about how far 16 inches is, and so I've gotten to be pretty good. But for the do-it-yourselfer, you may not have that skill. You may not be used to your gun yet. But anyway, you nail it every 16 inches, and I don't put too many nails. I don't put any more than I need. I do try to nail into every stud, but I'll go 2 here, 1 here, 2 here, 1 there, and so on. And that's how you nail your base on. And here in a second, we're going to show you how to put your corners together. Okay, so next we're gonna work on this corner joint, and because I'm mitering, I like to put a little bit of glue on the joint here. That way, after you've nailed it to the wall and the painters come in and caulk and paint it, you should never have the joint separate. It should stay together really well. So I'm gonna put that together there. I'm gonna get that down about 3/8. Okay. So once again, I've got it in place, but to start nailing, I need to know where my studs are again. So again, the easiest thing to do is just find an outlet. There should be an outlet on every wall. That's also part of building code. So I'll work my way over there. The one thing that I forgot to mention, if you want to come a little closer, is when I nailed this previous board on, I didn't nail it off all the way to the edge, and that way I'm able to make some adjustment there with the joint. This one actually looks pretty good. I'm off the ground about 3/8, and so now if it doesn't fit together perfectly, now of course when you're working with like stained grade wood and you're not going to be able to rely on caulk and a good painter to make this all look seamless, you'll have to get a little bit more technical, and I'm not going to go into that in this video, but I can see here that I can bring these joints just a little closer together, and so I'll hold them out with this little pry bar before I nail that off. And now I'll also do the same right here. Kind of pull that out before I nail it off. And now those nails will hold it in place. The glue will dry. I have very little gap here, hardly worth mentioning, but the caulkers are going to come along, and on the top of all of the space, all along the walls, are going to be caulking that. They'll even put a bead of it up here. And but that glue will dry, it'll set it. That should never separate, and the joint actually looks quite good. That's really all there is to it. So I hope these tips helped you, especially if you're a do-it-yourselfer. You should be able to now do this yourself. Thanks for watching.